Yes, good evening, everybody. I'd like to make a recommendation to pull items 3I, 5A, and 5B from the agenda. And I'd like to recommend switching 3H and 3G around. So 3H would go first prior to 3G because 3H will have some information for 3G.
Okay, I'm open for a motion to accept the amended agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Wells.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Schulze. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Russ, would you please remind us of the mission statement?
Yes, our mission statement is to educate all students academically, emotionally, and socially to inspire curiosity and resilience.
Thank you. We have two public input requests tonight. First, I'll call up Jessica Crandall, please.
Hi. So on February 10th, my daughter was violently attacked at Herman Elementary 2 times, once in the hallway. She ran to the bathroom for safety, thinking the other child would not follow her as he was a different gender. He followed her into the bathroom and tackled her and dragged her into the girls' bathroom. A teacher had heard my daughter scream and immediately intervened. And we couldn't exactly figure out why he would attempt to drag her to the boys' bathroom. That's kind of been all in the back of our minds as parents since this incident happened. I had talked to the school last week, and the plan is to reintegrate the child into the classroom. The child does not understand discipline or does not care about discipline. We don't think that reintegration is a good idea for for any of the girls in that school. And you'll learn more about that from the other speaker. I don't want to tell her story. But my daughter now is in the nurse's office every day trying to come home with some sort of illness or some sort of, we've had to pick her up, I think 3 times in the last, well, since it happened over a month now. It's a fight to get her to go to school in the morning. The child is supposed to be supervised 100% of the time. My daughter has seen him 4 times, 2 of which those times there was not an adult with him. And 2 of those days she was sent home due to an illness. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Brody and Ladana Schmitz, please.
Good evening. As the first speaker just spoke of, our story kind of piggybacks with hers. My concerns at this point is the safety of other children. While this said child was out on suspension due to what had happened to her child, my child was in daycare where this child reside or was going. And my 4-year-old daughter was sexually assaulted by said child. And at this point, my main concern is the safety for the children, not only emotionally, like you had spoke of at the beginning, but the safety of them is a big concern for my line of work. And at this point, I feel that something needs to be done. I don't discourage this child from getting an education. That's the #1 goal. But at this point, the safety for all the other children is a very big concern of mine. And or like she had said, the discipline point of view, that's a tough one. I'm not going to try to compliment on that or talk on that because that changes from situation to situation. And being in a school setting, I'm not one to say what should be done or what can't be done. I look at from a law enforcement standpoint that something safety wise must be done to protect the children in the schools. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to reports. First, the DECA report. Ms. Adams.
Thank you for having us tonight. If you want to put the first slide up. We are Sparta DECA. DECA is an association of marketing students. This year we have 50 members. If you can go to the next one, thank you. Our goal in DECA is to prepare the kids academically, do community show them the community and giving back to the community, prepare them professionally and create experienced leaders. Tonight I have 4 of my members with, and they are going to tell you why they joined DECA and some of the events that they've been part of this year. First up is Addie Alvarado.
Hi. Hi, I'm Addison Alvarado. This is my second year in DECA. I have not been to competition, but more of the activities with the community. I joined DECA because of volunteering opportunities in my community and being able to potentially work in the Spartan Stop. And the club looked fun and inviting. By joining DECA, I wanted to learn more about marketing with the knowledge I already have. I like being able to meet new people from different chapters and throughout the school. I've also received better leadership qualities. You can go to the next slide. I am the vice president of the Spartan Stop. The Spartan Stop helps teach DECA and marketing students how to run a store, make deposits, count inventory, and restock items. It also helps them practice their community service skills. There are many DECA members who work in the Spartan Stop during the school day and at pop-up shops during the sporting events. Now on to Kelly Castro.
Hi, I'm Kelly Castro, and this is my second year in DECA. Some of the reasons why I joined is because leadership skills, community service hours, and community engagement. I'm happy to say that I have the opportunity to be in most of the DECA events. Them being Fall Fest for community hours, the Mall of America trip, and districts competition, which has been the biggest one where I had a lot of fun. And then we have LC.
Hello, my name is Elsie Calkins. I'm a junior at Sparta High School, and this is my second year within DECA. This year, I am the Vice President of Business Partnerships. This entails that I go out to our businesses and I work with them and make sure that DECA has a professional experience with the businesses in the local area. I joined DECA to get this leadership experience so then I am ready and prepared in the world. And because of DECA, I've been able to do competition. I've made it to internationals 2 times. I'm going this April. And I also was able to run for state office where I was a candidate, and I was able to give a presentation at state to multiple people. And I also was in leadership council this year where I got to work with our past state officers and got to connect with more people throughout the country. Thank you. And Kira Markison is next.
Hello, everybody. I am Kira Markison. I'm a junior here at Sparta High. I've been doing DECA for the last 3 years. Now you can't really see the points on here, so I'll try to really enunciate. When I joined DECA my freshman year, there was obviously a lot of reasons. One of the biggest one was that my friend told me I should do it. But I was also really looking forward to having lots of leadership opportunities. Being able to attend conferences aimed at making me a better leader and facing adversity, as well as learning to adapt to different situations, have all been skills that I've really gained from DECA. I also joined to be able to prepare for my potential careers. So these last 2 years, I have participated in business law and ethics role plays, and pursuing a potential career in law is something that interests me. So being able to participate in role plays that would put me in contact with scenarios that I might see in a potential career as a lawyer has been really valuable to me. I also joined for networking, as a lot of my other members have said. Networking is fancy DECA word for being able to interact with a lot of other members, being able to share ideas to make our chapters better, and just make DECA a more inviting place for a lot of members. In the last 3 years I've done DECA, I have been a district champ all 3 years. My first year I did principles of finance, which was not really my jam. But these last 2 years I have been doing business law and ethics role plays with my partner, Vanessa Gavilan. At state, I have qualified for nationals 4 times. Last year, I double qualified in a project with Elsie Calkins and in my role plays with Vanessa Gavilan. And then this year, Vanessa and I qualified again for our role plays. And we also became state champs for our presentation, which was a marketing project for Hilton. One of the other things that I've really enjoyed about DECA these last couple of years is being able to share my experiences with other DECA members. So whether it's helping them edit their project, or giving them someone to present their presentations to, or administering practice tests or other things that they need to help them feel prepared for competition, I really like to make DECA enjoyable for our other members. You're good to go to your next slide. These are a couple pictures from some of our competition, which is definitely the part of DECA I'm most passionate about. On the first side, you'll see our pictures from districts. Me and Vanessa are the ones in the yellow pants, if you can see us. We also have a picture there from districts last year. As you can see, we're wearing masks. And so being in DECA these last 3 years, I've been able to see us grow from being completely virtual my freshman year to being fully in person and without masks this year. So seeing that growth in our chapter has been really cool. This year and last year, our state was at Lake Geneva. So that was a really good time. This year we drove down with a couple other teams. So again, more of those networking opportunities. And then lastly, we have our internationals, which we call ICDC. And last year we were in Atlanta, Georgia, which is a really good time. And this year we'll be in Orlando, Florida, which we're really looking forward to. Really big city with lots of opportunities to interact with business professionals and obviously sightseeing. So we just wanted to thank you guys for your time and open the floor up for any questions.
Mr. Hendricks, can I say something?
Go for it.
First and foremost, thanks to all of you. This is phenomenal. I mean, it's amazing to see when you go from a district to a state to a national to international. That's phenomenal. And thank you for putting us on the map with that and being a part of the community. One of the things I was going to ask is what's been your favorite thing this year specifically? Can each of you just state one thing that's just stood out to you?
I think that this year, my favorite thing has been the state officer. Just like the whole process of it, I thoroughly enjoyed it, even just making my presentation about myself. But the most thing that I loved about it was the fact when we had our interview, we got to network with our other candidates, and it was just so nice to see everybody's face and the connection through DECA that you can get with other people that you might be going to college in the future with. It's just such a nice experience.
Thanks, Elsie.
My favorite thing has probably been competing at districts, because last year I didn't compete due to the fear, I guess, of like public speaking and then just presenting it overall. But this year I decided to compete with another partner, and I just love the experience of like knowing what's involved with competing.
Thanks, Kelly.
I think my favorite part is working with the younger kids at like the holiday win party and doing different things throughout the community, because it's just really fun.
Thanks, Addie.
Yeah, and I would say, just like Kelly, competition's really been my favorite. State this year was a really good time. Being able to try a new competition event for me, which was my project, as well as being able to interact with a whole bunch of other teams was definitely my favorite part.
Thanks so much, Kieran. I will say, I know Kira personally, and she is not a fun person to debate. She's really good at it. So thank you for that. So.
Thank you. Other questions? Ms. Adams, is there a chicken queue on the calendar to support the? No. The-
So I thank you so
The,
much.
the district is providing enough support that you don't have to do a chicken queue.
Yeah,
I like that. Well, you're very welcome.
the last. So, and I had like 200 meals left over.
Yeah.
Out of 300. So, yeah, no, thank you.
Ladies, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Next report, Herman Elementary's Big Ten report.
Hi, I'd like to introduce you to Melissa Bjorkman Lejeune. She is a second grade teacher at Herman, and she's going to give you an inside look of what our Big Ten time looks like at Herman.
Thanks, Mrs. Mansky. As Kyla said, I'm Melissa. I've been teaching in Sparta for 12 years, and over the last couple years, our principals and our directors had just said, we really want to be able to show our story and tell our story of all the good things that the kids are doing in Sparta and the staff. And it kind of just sat in the back of my brain. And a couple months ago, I was with my Big Ten group teaching Everyone Needs. And I looked around the room and I saw my students doing 4 different things, all working on their goal, all producing their learning. And I thought this would be really cool to show our community and show the board. So before I jump into the good stuff, the student learning, I kind of have to go back and talk about how we plan for these Big Ten groups. So first and foremost, they're very much so driven and utilized from our PLC time. During that time, we as a second grade team or as grade level teams can get together and really look at our formative and summative assessments that our students have, how they're doing, what essential skills they have, and which skills they still need to master. We also have that time with specialists in the building because our schedules don't always line up with the different grade levels. So we can work with our special education teachers, our English language teachers, our interventionists, and we have a time built in that we can collaborate. So once we're all together, we take a look at what are our really big needs in the grade level at that time, and then we decide on really meaningful and targeted groups. At our grade level, we then give a week for teachers to place students where they need to go. And then we come back to PLC a second time around and we kind of refine those groups based on group size and number. So for example, one skill that takes a lot of heavy lifting in second grade is multi-digit addition and multi-digit subtraction. And they just need practice and time. And so if we have a big group, then we have aides available at the time that can work with the teachers. And so we can plan out the groups. Sam, could you go to the next slide? So we just ended our last round of Big Ten after we got together, and all of our students were placed into meaningful groups. So some students are in an intervention group where they're receiving skills that are not quite at grade level, but to help them be successful. For example, they might be doing some phonics work. They might be doing some basic addition and subtraction or strategies to help them do it on their own. Some students might be pulled by a specialist, so they're not missing any core instruction. While other students might be working on grade level skills like multi-digit addition and subtraction that they need to get really good at. They might be practicing some comprehension skills to help them be able to stick with the story as they're reading longer books and to be able to comprehend and understand what they're learning. And then we also have some extension groups. And this is the group that I happened to have this last time. And I really wanted to showcase how we're meeting all of the needs of our learners, especially those who are ready for some extension. So the good stuff, student learning. This first picture shows some of the goals that the students had that week. So they needed to produce something called Gallon Bot Man, which is essentially is a robot gallon man talking about the different capacity units. They also needed to use Seesaw, which is an app that we have on our iPads, to learn about the metric system with milliliters and liters. While they were working on that, some other groups were working with me to work on some historical fiction genre work. And so in that middle picture, you can see a student is reading. He's doing his job with me at that time, looking at how this genre is historical fiction and putting it together. Well, the student next door is working on the math target and extending their learning in that way. And then the final pictures also show the students producing their work of Gallon Botman and some of their creativity. So during our Big Ten time, which we really utilize PLC to make happen, we really can touch on the needs of all of our students. And then this next slide is a couple of the other groups that were working on building their addition and subtraction skills. And then there was one, are you going to try and play the video? If we can't do the video, it's okay, but it just shows some students practicing fluency and expression in their reading. And I'll close with just thank you for your service and thank you for our students and for our staff and community. Any questions?
Sure, I'll ask a question. So the Big Ten time, obviously second grade, what other grades? I'll hold the question.
Build a house strong. I will build a house of sticks. This is stronger than straw, and I can build it fast.
Kyla worked some magic and cut it in and out so you could see some of the highlights, but that's it.
Okay, so what other grade levels utilize this Big Ten time?
All of the grade levels at Herman are utilizing it. It's at a different time. So that way the interventionists and specialists are available at the different times.
Thank you.
So like first grade might be in the morning and then we're in the afternoon and etc.
Other questions?
Not a question, just want to say thank you for that. Yeah, it's really neat to see the different opportunities for the students. And so thank you.
Is this the first year you've been doing the Big Ten?
No, it's the first year. Well, we've called it Big Ten since we started at Herman. Okay, last year. It's been called Pie Time before at different elementary levels. I think one of the challenges was previously in the smaller elementaries, you only had 2 or 3 grade levels, and now you have a lot more students. So placing 160-ish students into meaningful groups to target learning is a lot of work. So the PLC time is really beneficial to get them placed to where they need to go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I could use one of those gallons.
Continuing with reports, item C, Director of Instructional Service Budget Report. Ms. Mansky.
So this graphic just shows you the parts of the instructional services budget. So you can see that the parts that we have include textbooks, supplies, testing materials, memberships, professional development, software and licenses, and purchase services. So we also have different funds for the purchases that come out of the instructional services budget. The largest fund source is through grants. So when you look at that graphic, the common school funds is the blue on the far left. Common school funds are funds that come from the state to cover library media purchases. And a funny story, they use those funds that are collected from the fines from speeding tickets, etc. Those all go into common school funds. So if you have to pay a speeding ticket, just know that your fine is going to books and libraries. Some of those other funds, grants, would be DODEA. DODEA would be the funds that are coming from being near Fort McCoy. And this current one is working on our SEL and our STEM and math projects. ESSER is the red one. We can see that that bar is the highest one. A lot of the things from my budget are coming from ESSER funds right now as well. When you look at the far right in that like teal, that's the funding that is Title 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the green bar is general fund. All right, so looking at each of those categories within the budget now, this first one is memberships. Some of the key ones that I wanted to point out for you here is the school improvement support. That is the one when you've heard me talk about guiding coalitions at the different schools. The school improvement support is the CISA group that supports that work. The other one I'd like to point out is the career and tech ed leadership. So one of the areas that we work with CISA in is academic and career planning and CTE work, which is that career and tech ed leadership. The next big area of the budget is professional development. These are some of the things that we work on. Right now, some of the big ones we're looking into for this coming year is the equitable multi-level systems of supports. And that's really looking at having a strong universal or whole class instruction with additional opportunities for reteaching and for interventions. Basically the work that Ms. Bjorkman-Lejeune just shared with us. The other one that I wanted to highlight here is the standards-based grading. One of the goals for the middle school is to work on including a standards-based grading approach to the school. And so we'll be doing some work to grow our practices in that area. The next big bucket is the software budget. And we do have a lot of software purchases within the district. Some of the biggest ones within this are IXL, which is both ELA and math, and it aligns to the standards and the skills that teachers are working on within their classroom and gives kids an extra chance to focus on practicing with those standards and the skills. The other big one here would be Schoology. Schoology is the management program, the electronic LMS, electronic library, no, not library, learning management system. See, I wrote this down. And that one is what 5th through 12th grade use. So a lot of their activities that they're doing within the classroom are posted and assigned on Schoology, and the kids can do the work and send it back in through Schoology. The next area is purchased services. When I think about purchased services, I'm thinking about a contract that I would have with somebody. So that first one is CISA. We contract with CISA for quite a few of our opportunities. This one is the support that we're getting to work on training our mentors and to work with standards-based grading. And then the second one on there I wanted to point out is grant evaluation. We actually contract with UW-Madison to evaluate our grant through DODEA. That has to be an external evaluator for us. The next area of the budget is with testing. Obviously, you've heard me do some reports about testing. That's a big part of the seat that I'm in right now. And you can see MAPS, that's the one that we use for grades 1 through 10. PALS is where we have our early literacy screener for grades pre-K and K. Zello is the one that we use that does some academic and career planning with students, and it also is test prep for the ACT and pre-ACT secure. And then FastBridge is one that our interventionists are using to progress monitor and make sure that the interventions that they're providing are actually meeting the needs of the students and that they're growing. And of course, what's an instructional services department without textbooks? The first bullet there is ECCP and SCN. ECCP is Early College Credit Program and Start College Now. So for the students who are enrolled in those extra classes, we do provide textbooks for them. And then you can see some of the other textbooks that we also purchase each year. So this slide is showing that 3-year budget summary. You can see the current year, what our spending is, our projected spending for the 23-24 school year, and we're kind of working toward that 24-25 budget as well. Do you have any questions for me?
I have a question. Can you go back to slide 23?
If you can tell me what it says, because I don't have it
Like
pulled
the
up.
graph of colors.
Thank you.
Yeah. So red bar ESSER, I'm assuming was not there 2021, won't be there 24-25. So that red bar shifts over to green.
Correct.
So if you go to the last slide, 30. How are we moving that $250,000 and reducing Fund 10 at the same time? I mean,
These are all the questions that we are asking ourselves and thinking about how can we reduce our spending now to prepare for that.
The slide that's up is all funding sources, not just the general fund. So the dollar amounts that are on the screen right now include the grant spending. But Kyla is correct that we are still working through how that ESSER comes off after next year.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, Ms. Mansky, can you just explain kind of the big gap there and why that shows up the way it does?
Yeah, I had it on a Post-it note that I left in my office. So great question. One of the big things that's changed from this current year and into next year is some of the extra PD that we've done with responsive classroom. That was a big ticket item for us. We're looking closely at the technology and trying to determine how we can reduce our expenses in that area. Looking, what's the better purchase for us, a district-wide license or looking at per seat. Another area is our WEN contract. Our year one contract was quite a bit more than what I proposed for this year. And I think what I budgeted for is actually going to come lower than that amount. So those are some of the areas that make up that difference.
Mr. Hendricks. Ms. Mansky and maybe Ms. Hauser as well. So right now we're looking to push off iPad purchases till next year. Is that into that 23-24 budget or 24-25, or is that not associated?
Yep, good question. The future iPad purchases for our elementary level, they were scheduled to be replaced in 23-24. We at this time do not have those included in a budget in 23-24. They would come back likely in 24-25, and that would actually be out of the technology budget then. Yep.
Any other questions? If not, thank you, Ms. Mansky. We will then move on.
I just
Oh,
want to
sorry.
say thank you to Ms. Mansky and Ms. Hauser and Ms. Mullen for their hard work. And this is just the first budget item that's on the agenda tonight. And it's a true collaborative effort between Ms. Hauser, Ms. Mansky, Ms. Mullen, and I come in and, answer some wonderful questions and say this. But I just want to thank the three directors and the building principals as they work through this as well. But the next few agenda items are big ticket items. And I just wanted to make sure that they spent a lot of time on this and still looking to revise everything. But I just wanted to thank them.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next report, 23-24 draft budget overview report. Ms. Hauser, I assume.
All right. So tonight, I would like to give an overview of what we're looking at for our 23-24 budget, which would be the budget that begins July 1st and would be applicable for the following school year. Where we're at in the budget process is we're still gathering all of our budget variables, and we're really operating in two different budget years right now. And I'll go through some of the variables that we're assuming and some variables that are out of our control and talk about the timelines for those as well. And then this budget will be formally adopted by the board in October. So just a quick overview again, when we look and we're focusing on our operating budget. And when we look at our revenue budget, nearly 80% of it is the revenue limit, which is a state imposed limit. And that limit sets the maximum amount of revenue that we receive from a combination of state aid and the local tax levy. So when we talk about our revenue, the main driving factor is the state imposed revenue limit. And then all other revenue would largely be our grant revenue, both state and federal grant. And so when we look at the major revenue variables, these are very much dependent on what the state budget does. Where we're at with the state budget right now is Governor Evers did put out his proposed budget, and it is going through Joint Finance Committee. And if it were to be adopted, the typical timeline would be somewhere around July. If not, sometimes it does go months later, but hopefully by July, we would have a pretty good indicator of what the state budget will be doing. So the current proposal from the governor is the increase in spending per pupil of $350 for the 23-24 school year. We are budgeting conservatively that we would get $100 increase per pupil. So if you recall the last state budget, the actual budget came in less than the governor's proposal. And that is the reason why that we're not budgeting to the full proposal, but we have selected $100. We are also assuming no change in enrollment. We previously had been projecting a decline in enrollment for 23-24, but we've seen some nice increases this year that we're projecting will carry forward into next year. The second major variable is the reimbursement for special education aid. So currently in the state, for every dollar that we spend on special education, we get approximately 28 to 30% back the following year. The governor's proposal would make that reimbursement rate 60%. We have seen proposals for many years now to increase that rate, and they haven't come to fruition, or at least not as much as been talked about. And so for that reason, we're budgeting a 35% reimbursement rate next year, which is still an increase over the current year. And then the final major revenue variable is our grant awards. And for those, we are not looking at any new grants. We, with our current grants, we looked at what our current year allocation is, along with if we can carry over any unused money from this year into next year. So the grant awards we get for 2 years. And so we're trying to maximize what we spend our money on this year to hopefully create some more for next year. And we also wanted to note that 23-24 will be the final year of ESSER funding. For our expense budget, nearly 70% of the total district expenditures are spent on salaries and benefits, and then all other cost of operations make up the remaining 30%. So we break out our expenses into these categories for budgeting purposes. So salaries and benefits, again, at 70%. Then we have our building budgets, which our principals and building administrators manage. Instructional services, which is the budget Ms. Lansky just went through. Our student services budget includes special education, as well as student support. Business services is all cost of operations in the district, and then governance is board and superintendent. For our salary and benefit assumptions, these are assumptions that we're using in the current budget. These are not assumptions that have been seen or approved by the board, but rather have been used in our budgeting process. So the budget I'm talking about tonight reflects a reduction of 8.4 FTE. This is per the email that Mr. Russ sent to staff last week. And we're estimating that that would be a savings of approximately $500,000. We also are assuming a 2% CPI, which would be an increase of $360,000. In conversation about CPI, each 1% of CPI equals approximately $180,000. For health insurance, we are assuming a 10% increase in the cost of health insurance, which costs approximately $600,000. Our actual amount will be known in April. For our building budgets, we are assuming no change to the building budgets which does also include our budgets for co-curriculars. For our instructional and student services, we are looking at a $30,000 decrease. This is in the operating budget. This does not include the grant spending, which is why there's the difference from the presentation you just saw. And the reason for not including the grants is the revenue equals the expense with the grants, so they offset each other. So operating budget impact $30,000 decrease. Business services includes many of the other major categories besides salaries and benefits, such as buildings and grounds, technology, transportation, and utilities. For buildings and grounds, we're looking at a decrease of $230,000. The operating budget would remain relatively the same as this year, but for the capital improvements, we would look to decrease that investment, which is the presentation later tonight. Technology is reflecting the budget that Mr. Stearman presented to you at the last meeting, which would be a $280,000 decrease. The majority of the savings would be from delaying the renewal of the iPads at the elementary level. Teachers on call is our substitute staffing service. We have not been having good fill rates with that solution, and so we're looking at some in-house solutions, which would then decrease that cost by $130,000. Our transportation contract follows inflation, and so we're looking at a 5% increase or $350,000. Utilities, we budgeted very conservatively this year, and so we're not looking at any change for the total cost of utilities. And then all of our other operational costs like district-wide phone service and things of that nature all equate to a $60,000 increase. The governance budget, we're looking at a decrease of $20,000 due to some one-time items that came out of that budget this year for things like advertising, legal cost of elections come out of here, and other things that we don't believe would roll forward into next year. And when we take all of that together, we're saying that we have overall a near balanced budget, which is not a final number. And that's because we are about 6 months out from having an original budget get approved. But what we really wanted to point out was that with all of the indicators that we've been analyzing and the major assumptions that we provided, we are on the right track to have a balanced budget in October. And I say that based on a presentation you'll be hearing a little bit later tonight, which is our 22-23 budget revision. And what you will see as part of those budget revisions is that we're not projecting we'll have to use that revenue stabilization this year. And that will actually be adding to it about another $100,000 or so. So we're projecting that if the board so chose, they could set aside revenue stabilization at the end of this year right now for somewhere in the $700,000 range. And using that revenue stabilization, we would have a balanced budget next year.
So before the questions or anything like that, I want to thank Leah and the directors for putting this all together. And near is, we're, as Ms. Hauser said, near is in quotes, it's a ballpark, and we feel comfortable where we're at. And once again, the assumptions, we had to start somewhere. And these assumptions, the board has not approved or anything like that. I want to make that very clear. But it gives the board and it gives the public and gives the staff an idea about where we're at budgetarily moving into next year. So they're only assumptions, nothing's been approved. But it's a starting point, and I think we're in a very good shape. And as Leah said, in October, we get this a little bit closer. In July, we'll be lucky if we know the governor's budget, but we're just moving forward to let everybody know where our current status is.
Ms. Hauser, I have a question for you regarding capital improvement. This proposed budget calls for a reduction in $230,000 in capital improvements. Our current budget also reflected a decrease in the capital improvement budget.
Yes.
Is there anything in that budget?
You are correct. We did start the year planning on a zero budget for capital improvements. The high school chiller project with delays ended up going into this year, so we had to do a budget revision. And also the south side canopy ended up coming in more than what was anticipated with some of the brickwork that needed to be done. So we actually ended up this year with a capital projects budget of about 350,000. So that would be the decrease going into next year.
So effectively, we will be going into a second year with no capital improvement budget.
Correct.
Other questions?
Along those same lines, prior to last year, were there things on the long-term plan that we should have been addressing this year that have not been or will not be?
Absolutely. To stay even somewhat current, we need to budget between $500,000 and $600,000 a year on capital improvements. And that's still not touching all of our most urgent needs, but it's getting our highest priority.
Any other questions?
Suppose I should say this for clarification. We're taking money out of Fund 46 instead, right? That was the original plan?
Not to fund our long range capital improvement plan. Fund 46, the vast majority of it was used at Memorial Field. And there is a remaining balance of in the neighborhood of $400,000 that is earmarked for the high school auditorium. So anything on our long range capital plan is being delayed.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hauser.
One more, speaking of, we don't have any, you mentioned capital improvements and that sort of thing. This will be a discussion point for the board. Do we want to add money into the long range plan, into buildings and grounds? Do we want to add money into co-curriculars, into staffing? So those are the discussions that the board will be having when we start to look at balancing our budget and shifting funds based on the priority of the district.
Thank you. Moving on to the monthly financial report.
I will make this quick because we have budget revisions later on in the agenda that will go into more detail. But the long and short of it is February was an uneventful month. Our revenues and expenses are trending as we planned. No unexpected cash inflow or outflow. And the full reports are attached in board docs.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much. Moving on to business items. Item A, discussion and possible recommendation to the full board to approve Sparta High School's 2023 candidates for graduation under consent.
Good evening. I'm excited to bring to you the list of candidates for graduation for the class of 2023. Please remember that these are candidates, so they need to meet all of the regular graduation requirements, 48 credits, 10 hours of community service, and end the year obviously in good standing. So I'm hoping that you can take action on this and we can move forward with graduation. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Hearing no questions, seeing no questions, I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
I would move to approve SHS 2023 candidates for graduation under consent.
I will second that.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. McKenna, second by Mr. Scholze. It could be just a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Ms. Lopez, are you online?
I am, yes, thank you. I've been able to listen in so far.
Thank you. We're glad you could join us.
Thank you.
Moving to item B, discussion and possible recommendation to approve early college credit program and Start College Now applications under consent.
I'd like to introduce Maria Cabinet. She's one of our school counselors, and she's going to talk to you about our ECCP and Start College Now applicants for the fall.
Hi, thank you. So for this year, we have 39 applications for Start College Now. Oh, sorry, short. And 32 early college credit applications for you to review and for approval. So when you're looking at the applications, please be mindful that the students don't take all the classes that are on the applications. So when students are registered for these classes, we have them fill out this application with us, and then they have to go through the approval process with the college. We are also the last students to be able to register for the classes. So students, we have them put extra classes on there so that when we're getting the approval, sometimes it's easier for them to already have that application, the class on the application so that we can get it approved. Sometimes students don't always get the classes that they want. With applications, you also got our new student expectation agreement for review. Any questions? There should be 71 applications total. I know that's a lot to scroll through.
Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Hendricks, I'd make a motion to recommend to the full board approval of the early college credit program and Start College Now applications and be placed under consent.
I'll second that, but can I ask one quick question?
Sure,
before?
we have a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Further discussion.
Can I just ask, can you share a little bit about how students are promoted this opportunity? Like how do they find out about it? Like what support does that look like from the counselors, and how is that, how is it accessible to all of our
So
students?
all students, so juniors and seniors are all able to do this program. So we promote it through our Spartan Strong. So through our daily slides, I send emails through parents through Skyward. We also talk about it. So when we do our junior and senior conferencing, so junior conferencing we do with parents. We talk about these programs that we offer, and then seniors, again, we offer that program. So even if they didn't get it in for that first semester, that they could do it the second semester of senior year. So we have quite a bit of opportunity that we talk about it. Usually anytime we have students, we try to afford that opportunity for them to talk about it. I try to promote through Spartan Strong because I do it 4 days out of the week. And in that, I say, speak with your counselor so that they can decide what classes to take. Because as a high school student, you never know which classes to take. So that gives us a great opportunity to have those conversations. We do want them taking classes that are meaningful towards their degree program. And so having those conversations with us gives them that opportunity. Yep.
Hearing no further questions, we have a motion by Mr. Schulze, a second by Mr. Burns Gilbert. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item C, discussion and possible recommendation to approve policies 8410, 8420, 8420.01, 8431.01, 8442, 8450, 8450.01, 8452, 8453, 8453.01, 8462, 8462.01, 8350, 3430, 3430.2.02, sorry, 3430.01, 8120, 8141, 8145, 8146, 8210, 8220, 8300, 8305, 8309, 8310, 8315, 8320, 8320.01, 8325, 8330, 8330.01, 8340, 8350, 8390, 8395, 8405, 8463, 8531, 8540, 8550, 8600, 8605, 8660, 8680, 8710, 8740, 8760, 8800, and 8900 under consent. Did I miss any? Yeah, no. Any, do I have a motion to that effect?
Mr. Hendricks, I will make a motion to recommend approval to the full board, the policies as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Scholze. A second by Mr. Wells. Is there any discussion?
I just want to remind everybody that this is a second time the board that we had our policy workshop earlier this, in February, where we had a policy workshop. We had some good dialogue. Some community members came, and so this is the second reading for the board to have that. And we do have our next policy workshop on Wednesday as well, which we'll highlight at the end as well.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Mr. Hendricks, excuse me.
Sure.
I have a question. I may have missed, but did you include 3430, 3430.02, 3430.01 on the final slide?
Yes,
You did. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. I apologize for the interruption.
I will clarify that. I don't know that it's on the slide. I was reading off of the agenda.
Okay. But those were included.
Those are included.
Yes, I'd like to include. We also did 3430. Thank you, Ms. Lopez, 3430.02 and 3430.01.
Okay, understanding that, I'll call for a vote then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item D, discussion and possible recommendation to approve policy 8450.01 PPE during a epidemic event. Mr. Russ, you want to address that?
Yep. So at our policy meeting, the committee, the workshop decided to pull this out. It is the PPEs during pandemic and epidemic events. And we had a lot of good discussion. We talked a lot about exemptions, personal conviction, religious, just really had probably a very long discussion, probably a couple hours on that. So 8450 came to the board, 0.01, with religious exemption in the policy, which was added to that. Since our policy meeting, I did ask Neola a little bit more when we start talking legality and that sort of thing. And I have not gotten back from them for the legality, but to my understanding, it is legal to have that policy in there. How you go about, with that policy is something. So if you can't necessarily ask for a signed from your priest or pastor or anyone like that. But you can put it in there. I asked them I asked Neola if any other districts in Neola that use them had religious, and he said no other Neola district had the religious in there. So that's a little bit more information that I did gather. And I just wanted to share that with the board prior to the discussion, if they wish to have further discussion or whatever their next steps are.
Let's go for the motion first. Do I have anyone care to make that motion?
I would actually make a motion to table this until we get some more information. I think that was one of my questions right away, was how many other Neola clients are doing this out of hundreds of clients, and there's exactly zero. And I don't feel great about recommending this to the full board until we're able to have more pieces to that puzzle on what liabilities we may or may not open up to our staff, our student, our input, right, our community. I think there's lots of red flags for me, and that was one of a few others. So that's where my motion would go, to table it for the next policy workshop and allow our legal WASB Neola to give us more specific feedback and guidance on what that implementation could look like. So that was one of my takeaways and kind of researching, is that if we do implement it, it's legal, right? There's no federal law saying that we have to, but we could open ourselves up for liability if we are creating a system that approves some and denies others and raises that religion piece up for others that might not be practicing. So
We have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to table. I don't think it's debatable. Correct me if my parliamentary procedure is not On par with that. All those in favor to table the motion? Or to
Mr.
table-
Hendricks,
Yes,
are we allowed to have discussion if it's tabled, or is it just done? Obviously not a debate whether or not we table it, but just discussion in general.
I believe once we table it, then it's done.
It goes back to the
It's
workshop.
tabled to the workshop.
Okay.
I'm not infallible if there's someone who wants to argue differently, but. Okay, all those in favor of tabling the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is tabled, or the issue is tabled. Moving on then. We are at business item E, discussion and possible recommendation to approve the buildings and grounds long-range plan.
All right. For any of you who haven't met Justin, this is Justin Drury, our buildings and grounds supervisor. And since this is his first rodeo with a board presentation, I am going to help him out tonight. So I'll be doing a lot of the talking, but if you have any questions or anything you want to say to Justin, he's here to help too. So our long range plan, we have analyzed the plan that was left before Justin and have spent a lot of time going through it and working through it. And when we prioritized, we really look at these few areas: safety and security, the physical condition of the building, what our curricular needs are, what our co-curricular needs are, and what our community needs are. We also looked at the range of 0 to 10 years and determined that over the next 5 years, we can be kind of reasonably sure about which year something goes in, but then really after that, it's in bands. 5 to 10 years out, this is what it needs to be on our radar, 10 to 15 years out, and so on. And so when you look at the full plan attached in board docs, you'll see a couple new columns that weren't there the last go around, which are condition columns, priority columns, and then again, those years with the band. And we want to point out that all of those are with our best knowledge that the two of us had. Again, Justin just took over this role in January. And so we've really been crafting our plan for moving forward. Part of that is to have a full facility assessment, including a master plan, which we have selected the firms that we'll be working with. And we actually have our kickoff meeting on Thursday. And that process will help us quite a bit to understand if our priorities are correct on our plan, if our plan is complete. We also gained valuable input at our community event last week. Additionally, we want to have in-depth conversations with the building principals and the head custodians because they're living in the buildings every day, and make sure that the plan reflects what they see and need for their areas as well. As I mentioned earlier, our typical goal each year is to budget between $500,000 and $600,000 a year out of our operating budget for capital projects. This year, you'll notice that the budget is $100,000, and that's because of the budget situation that we're in, that we're looking to cut costs where we can. This does not mean we only have $100,000 worth of needs, but these are needs that we thought needed to be addressed. And this is the second year in a row of a relatively small to non-existent capital project budget. Some projects you'll also notice have the word referendum by them. That's because they're likely going to be in the dollar range that we wouldn't be able to afford them within our annual operating budget. We would need some bigger solution, whether that be a facility referendum or taking out some short-term debt or something like that, but they likely couldn't be supported with our annual operating budget. So going through the projects that we identified for 23-24, some of these are urgent. Some are a small enough dollar amount that we can get them in and kind of get them going off the to-do list. We can do it within, you know, that reasonably small budget. And again, they total about $100,000. And then this is the list of things within the next 2 to 5 years. So again, the year will be flexible. We'll learn a lot through the facility assessment process. But these are the things that are rising to the top of the list. I also called out vehicles specifically because you'll notice a lot of vehicles were at the top of the list. This doesn't necessarily mean we're recommending to replace all of those vehicles in the next couple of years. What it means is we really need to analyze our vehicle usage. So for instance, our maintenance vans are old transportation vans that had the seats taken out. What that means is our maintenance people don't have a ramp to get big items into the van. A lot of the items they need to move don't fit in the van. They're crawling on hands and knees through the van versus a typical work truck that would have the ramp and you'd be able to stand and move freely. Not only does that cause some ergonomic things with our employees, but it's also wasted mileage and swapping out vehicles for trucks and trailers and things like that. So we think there could be some efficiency gained in getting the right fleet for the right purpose. We're also looking at, do we have the right size fleet? So, and this includes co-curriculars as well. So what are our co-curricular needs? And the type of vehicles that we have are those what is best meeting our needs. We would like to establish what expected life for a SASD vehicle is. How many miles is that? How many years is it? At what point do we stop investing in maintenance costs? So really developing a plan. And then finally, we've had really good luck on the technology side with utilizing leasing and other types of models like that to spread the cost out over time and to stay current with our fleet of, for instance, technology equipment. And so we're looking, is there a system like that we can use with vehicles? So that was a long explanation just to tell you why there are so many vehicles at the top of the list. It's because we want to go through this whole process. And with that, are there any questions?
Any questions from the group?
Leah, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So on the slide that says projects for 2023, 2024, Sparta High School instructional spaces, and you list the auditorium there. And as you mentioned before, we're planning to use Fund 46, and we have about 400,000 set aside for that. So that item, although it's a project, is not obviously included in that $105,000 budget estimate. Is that correct?
You got it. Yep. So that would be an additional 400,000, but it wouldn't come out of operating budget. It would come out of Fund 46.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Other questions?
So you've noted the last 2 years, we've pushed things off a little bit. Can you give me an example of the couple of the highlights of things that should have been done that we have not done yet? I'm curious if we're accumulating expenses on those down the road.
I would say the biggest one we pushed off was finishing the Meadowview parking lot. That was a pretty hefty price tag that we've pushed off a couple of years now. And looking at the items that have surfaced during that time, we may look to push it off even further. The other thing is we're starting to look at the focus of, I shouldn't say starting. We're also looking at not only what is at the end of life, but what are the energy efficiency things that we can be doing that will have that return, safety and security. So there may be things that are rising to the top quicker than the plan you saw a year ago, but with some different types of reasons attached to them.
Mr. Hendricks, if I could just piggyback off that, and I don't know if it'd be Ms. Hauser, Mr. Drury, or Mr. Rust, but the Meadowview parking lot is brought up. If we delay that another year, are we having a major detriment to the parking lot itself, or can it sustain another year?
It can sustain another year.
It could. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hendricks, I have a question.
Yes.
Leah, or excuse me, Miss Hauser. When we're discussing the middle parking lot, didn't we do the back or the front? I mean, didn't we do part of it and we just put some of it aside?
Yes, you are correct.
It was before I was on the board, but I'm just trying to recall.
Yep, you're correct. We did the front, but not the entire front. So there's a section closest to the highway that was not done. We did seal it. We did the crack filling and sealed it, but we did not replace it. And then the whole back parking lot where the buses use, that has not been done.
Okay, so it's still a significant portion that needs addressing. Okay, thank you.
It'd be about half of it. Yep.
Thank you.
With that, I think it would be appropriate to have a recommendation to refer this long-range plan to the full board.
Yes, and I just want to chime in. The reason we're looking for approval of this plan and we haven't for our others is it's a requirement for Fund 46 through DPI that we have this plan formally approved each year.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
I'll
Gilbert.
second.
Thank you, Mr. McKenna. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Shelby,
Yes.
Mr. Burns Gilbert,
Yes.
Mr. McKenna,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Ms. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks.
Yes, motion carries 6-0, 1 absent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're moving on to item F, discussion and possible recommendation to approve the CISA 4 contract for the 23-24 school year. Mr. Russ, I think that's you.
Yep. Just a quick overview. CISA is our cooperative education service agency. There are 12 of them across the state of Wisconsin. Thank you, Ms. Hauser. And we partner with them for various services. And some of the services are on the slide. School improvement services, WISE data, student services, the itinerant services. I want to highlight those. Those are hearing, vision, OT, PT. Those are the ones that we might not be able to have an in-house person for, so we contract those out. General support and collaboration. The directors are the principals are part of networking groups and that sort of thing. And we get a lot of environmental health and safety support from them as well. Just another overview of the contract. The contract this year is in board docs. With some information in regards to the selected services that we would like to propose. It's about $260,000. This is an increase from last year, about $17,000, but $8,000 of that is a new service that we're very excited about. It gives, actually, Ms. Mullen, would you like to explain that new service that we are getting for CISA to support our staff?
Sure. So the new service is called the Special Education Improvement Services, SASE, and it has things such as it's basically overall special education support. We used to have a position, a program support teacher who provided a lot of training and development to our paraprofessionals and our special education teachers. We currently do not have anybody in that position, so this would be one way to help support our teachers. They'll do on-site visits, provide professional development, help with procedural compliance with IEPs. So those are just some samples of some of the things that person and that service will help us with.
A lot of other districts have that service and are very excited about it. Ms. Hauser went to a safety conference and it helps our staff be really proactive rather than reactive, de-escalation, and to keep them safe as well. So we're excited to add that as an option for your review. But other than that, we're open to questions. A lot of this comes out, not a lot, it comes out of grants, Title II grants, specifically professional development is an idea, but it also comes out of Director of Instructional Services, Student Services, Buildings and Grounds, flow through as well. So those are the major funding sources. So what we're bringing to you is about a $262,000 CISA contract we're recommending for your approval.
Mr. Hendricks, I'd entertain a motion to recommend to the full board the approval of the CISA 4 contracts for the 2023-2024 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Schulze. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Before I call for a roll call vote, I do have a question. My recollection is that the CISA contract typically also includes some things that are non-instructional services or itinerant service, such as asbestos plan or things like that. Could you, I don't, did I miss that on there?
That is included on there. It's through CISA 10 and it's environmental services, which includes asbestos testing and other, our chemical logs and other services.
Okay. So that remains on there.
Yep. And that comes out of the buildings and grounds budget.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Hendricks, I have a question before we go to vote.
Sure.
If it's open for discussion. So I understand that the special education improvement services, the one that was just discussed for $8,000 will help our overall budget and help support our staff with the absence of that position in our district right now. But when we're looking at an increase and a 250,000 or roughly that expenditure, I'm just wanting to ensure the community and the board as well that this contract has been looked at through the eyes of things that we absolutely need to have and not things that we would like to have to help support our district. And so I guess I'm asking if this has been gone through with a fine-tooth comb with those parameters in mind. Are these contracts or these services that we're contracting with CISA necessary at this time?
What we did, the benefit of having 3 out of 4 new eyes on these things. Yes, we go through a fine tooth comb and say, hey, they understand where we're at. And then we move forward. So Ms. Mansky did go through all the instructional services, and everyone is tied to some instructional goal that we're talking about. And same thing with instructional or with student services. Everything is tied specifically back to what we're trying to do as a program, as a district to move forward. So I'm very confident, and some of the things are legal requirements, as we just talked about asbestos and that sort of thing. So I'm very confident that these are the services we need to have, not that we want to have or are nice to have. These are all great things. And I can tell you for what we do talk to CISA a lot more than what we're contracted for with their additional support. They're very generous and they're very kind to us. And we do believe that these are all necessary services.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to know. I appreciate that.
With that, then I'll call for a roll call vote, please.
Mr. McKenna,
Yes.
Mr. Schulze,
Yes.
Mr. Burns-Gilbert,
Yes.
Ms. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks.
Yes. Motion passed 6-0 with 1 absent. We'll move on to, we're switching the order of the items. So we're going to item H, and then we'll follow that with item G. Item H, discussion and possible recommendation to approve the 22-23 budget revisions. Ms. Hauser.
And so now I'm talking about the other budget year that we're currently in, which is the current budget year, 22-23. This will be the second round of revisions for this year's budget. Your previous budget revisions were presented and approved in January. So with March, our next round will come up again in June. So as we're getting towards the end of the year, and then the final budget revisions will be in July as we're closing out the year for the audit. We are focusing on the operating budget tonight, which is funds 10 and 27. The full budget revisions are attached in board docs, but I just wanted to highlight a few things. Our revenue is increased about 118,000 compared to January. The largest change here is we watch our forfeiture balances on our 403B, and we currently have $150,000 of forfeitures, which is our employees get currently $1,500 a year in 403B. If they leave before 9 years of service, that money reverts back to the district. Between 10 and 14 years of service, it's 50% vested. And so unfortunately, we've had turnover, and that has resulted in some forfeitures, which then come back to us as revenue.
Any questions on those? I have a question.
Yeah.
You said that the forfeitures was approximately
50.
150,000. I would maybe encourage the board to consider that this benefit that we provide to staff, as in this case, the money often comes back to us, and so it does not cost us the full amount to provide that benefit, because when they are these forfeitures, a good portion of it comes back. So I think it's a good program that we should continue. With that, any other?
Well, I still have some more slides.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
If you want to hear about the expenses.
No.
All right. So for expenses, again, salaries and benefits is really our big one. And we, in January, when I did budget revisions, I hadn't really started looking at the salaries and benefits too much because we really didn't have that many months of data. So for this round of budget revisions, I went through all of the salaries and benefits because we have had some turnover this year. We have had positions that we were planning on that we had to leave vacant, specifically in some of our classified staff areas. We've had things like maternity leaves that went unpaid, and all of these different circumstances that you don't necessarily know will happen in the beginning of the year. And now we have about a half year's worth of data that I could adjust some of those. And so when you accumulate all of those things together, along with benefits. So for all of our new staff, when we set the original budget, we don't always know what benefit plans they'll elect yet. And so we budget that they take the family benefit plan, so that's the conservative budgeting. And so now we know what people have elected and things. So all of that accumulated to a reduction in the salaries and benefits budget of nearly $800,000. And then the other changes to instructional services and student services, those are really changes between the grants. And a lot of times those are offset by either a change in revenue or a change in the salaries and benefits budget. So it's not necessarily new additional spending, it's changing the bucket, I guess, where the spending came from. In the business services budget, the net change was $18,000, but I wanted to point out what made that up. So as I mentioned just a little while ago, we did increase the budget from 0 for long range projects up to about $340,000. That was for the Southside Canopy and the high school chiller. Those were projects we had planned in the 21-22 school year that ended up floating over into 22-23. That was the main budget increase, but that was offset by reductions to our teachers on call budget, which again is our substitute staffing service. We just haven't had the utilization, so that was a $60,000 reduction. Our transportation budget, we started out the year budgeting really high for fuel, if we all remember what fuel was doing last summer. So I reduced that by $40,000. And then also our utility budget, we were unsure of what the gas market would be doing. And so we budgeted pretty high for utilities. We're clearly not through the winter season completely yet, although we want to be. But we have had some months of winter heating. And so I can reduce that budget by $65,000. So again, the net impact isn't much, but I wanted to show those offsets. And so overall, what this equals is a net excess revenue over expenditures of approximately 130,000. And what that means is that the revenue stabilization that was set aside of the 575,000, we would not need to touch that money. And also, if the year were to end today, we'd have 130,000 additional we would be putting into fund balance. That all being said, we still have more months to go, but we continue to budget conservatively and only reduce budget when we're reasonably certain that we can do so. Any questions?
I might have missed, where are you getting the 130,000 from?
It is the difference between the total revenue and total expenses in that yellow column.
That 570, that column, the revised budget column?
You got it. Yep.
Yes, remember last year we took that money and set it aside just in case we needed it.
Yeah, the revenue stabilization. So that's part of that calculation, the 130?
The 130 would be in addition to. I didn't show the math on the side, but in the attachment and board docs, it's in there if you wanted to look at that. It's the final section on that attachment.
Thanks.
Yep.
I don't have any questions. I just want to thank you for the great news.
Yes.
Yeah, this is very positive news. And once again, it is a lot of work from, budget revisions. I'm learning come 4 times a year, and they're a lot of work. Ms. Hauser works very hard on that, and it's a lot of collaboration with the directors and saying, okay, where can we do? Well, this is our actuals that we have. We're still lagging, some bills aren't in yet. But the approach that we've taken in the past is everything's very conservative. For instance, budgeting for a new hire to take a family plan. They may not take insurance at all. So you're starting to see that about 800,000 there. Utilities, transportation. So we budget very conservatively, just like $100 per pupil rather than doing the governor's proposal of $350. We just needed to pick a number to go with, and I agreed with the $100, which is, I'm hoping we get that. And I think we will. So special thanks to Leah and her entire business service team for putting that together, because that's also a collaborative effort within behind the scenes with her department.
Further questions?
I have a question, please.
Yes.
Okay, so Ms. Hauser, on the general fund expenses slide under governance, includes the Board of Education, the superintendent, and I believe there's a third category.
There is grants and communications, which is the position Liz Wilcox holds.
Right. So can you explain the increase in that in the governance budget?
Yeah, great question. Go ahead.
I can do that since it's the one I oversee. And yes, I'm over budget. I blame Miss Markran. Anyway, we've had some larger legal expenses. Our advertisement for the sale of the Cataract Elementary School. We did do some more public relations outreach. We have 3 newsletters that go out to all of our mailbox holders. And we're really trying to increase our social media presence, trying to really promote our open enrollment period. That's one part. And I don't want to throw the Board of Education members under the bus, but a lot of them are going to do their own professional development, which is great. So the past few years with COVID, there wasn't that much opportunities, but since we're opening up more and the board members are going to more professional development, that's also seen an increase there. So that's the main reasons behind the increase. We're hoping next year that some of the legal fees would fall off, and I'll do a better job of controlling the Board of Education to go to expensive conferences. No, I'm just joking there. So, but no, your professional development is very important. Our board members were relatively new, and thank you for taking an opportunity and taking advantage of those professional opportunities that are available, because that's what we want to do. We want to educate you guys as well.
Thank you very much for explaining that. I appreciate it.
I'll accept a motion to approve these changes to the full board.
I'll make a motion to approve the 22-23 budget revisions.
Thank you, Mr. McKenna.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Any further discussion or questions? If not, a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Schulze,
Yes.
Mr. Burns Gilbert,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. McKenna.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0 with one absent. We'll go to item G, discussion and possible recommendation to approve staffing decisions for the 23-24 school year. Mr. Russ.
Yes, before we get into the slides, I do want to say a few things. I'd like to make sure it's very clear that the Board of Education has not taken any action on any of these items yet. These items that are coming to review for the board are from administration. And I will say they're from me. After many hours of dialogue with the directors, the principals, we came to some ideas about how to look at our staffing for next year. So these are administrative recommendations. I can tell you not all administrators are happy with these, and I can tell you none of these are 100%. Hey, this is great for this, this, and this. These are things that we can realistically do in our opinion. And when I say our, you can just throw my opinion in there because I'm bringing them forth to you guys in regards to how do we move forward for next year. But the principals did advocate for their buildings, but they do also understand the big picture of where we're at. ESSER is falling off. They just heard for the first time our budget as well. So they're also very excited about that positive news, but we also have an eye to the future for 24-25 when ESSER does fall off. And we started to talk about where are these funds coming? Where are we going to do that? And as Ms. Mansky said earlier, anything we can do now helps us in the future as well. So I just wanted to say that before we get going into the presentation. So I want to make a couple things very clear. Under this plan, no staff will lose their employment. No staff member will lose their employment. Locations and responsibilities may change to meet the needs of our students in our community. Biggest thing, they may be shifted to meet the needs of our kids. I talked about the many hours of collaboration. And once again, we're treating ESSER as falling off, but we're not just looking at those ESSER funded positions to say, hey, those are the ones that need to go first. ESSER and Fund 10 positions are being intertwined for this kind of discussion, so we can move forward with those. We've already had some resignations and retirements that through attrition already. Ms. Hauser talked about those already and gave you some actual numbers. And based on our past history and our past data, we'll continue to have more attrition as we go. But we have had several resignations and retirements for various reasons. So now we get into the reductions for your consideration. Once again, these are for considerations and these are coming from me. A 0.5 instructional coach at Meadowview, that is currently vacant. We're looking at class sizes in first grade, and we think that we can reduce by one first grade teacher and still have class sizes very reasonable. At Meadowview, looking at class sizes across the board, I know we went to the pod system last year. And looking at a consideration of reducing a core teacher at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level. And class sizes, if we do that, would still remain 21 to 23. I do want to add that administration has looked at, currently in the pod system and currently keeping our current schedule. Administratively, internally, we have looked at what that could possibly look like, but no decisions have made moving forward. And it gives us an opportunity to work with our staff to come up and be creative as well to say, hey, how do we meet the needs of our kids if we would reduce down one core teacher? Once again, those are big ifs, and the administration has not had those discussions formally yet with their teachers. We're looking at 2 SVLA special education teachers. We are planning on having SVLA next year. However, based on the caseloads and our current situations in the buildings, we feel that we can absorb the caseloads in those from those 2 staff members. We feel that we can absorb them into the building. So that would be a reduction in SVLA special education. And we're also looking at reducing five positions for regular education assistants district-wide, yet to be determined. based on the needs of our kids and the programming. You might ask, well, why not special education aides? Well, Miss Mullen is looking very hard. It's not, you just can't remove an aide. It's based on IEP minutes. It's based on the team's decisions. So just saying you're not, Mr. Wells, you're not going to get that service just because it's written in your IEP. We can't do that. That's illegal. So, but all the IEPs are being reviewed and looked at. And when we have opportunities to see where we can shift support, we definitely will make those recommendations. But as of right now, I can't tell you we're going to reduce special education aides because it's all based on the needs of our kids. And we had Mr. Roddick did retire, and we're looking at not hiring a principal at Herman Elementary. And thank you, Mr. Roddick, for running the technology today. I hope that you can see it and hear it online. So additions. Every year, you know, we look at reductions, but we also look at additions. It goes back to what kind of programming needs are we going to be doing? What are the needs of our kids? What are the needs of our staff, community? We're looking at adding, these are for your consideration. And the 1.0 for the expansion grant for ISA, that's pretty much a done deal already because we've already accepted that grant. And we did hire someone already for that. We have a current 6th grade teacher that transferred over for next year. We're looking at hiring a dean of students at Meadowview Middle School. I'll get to that in a little bit, but we're looking to transfer Mr. Dow to replace Mr. Roddick as a principal, so that's still a reduction there. We're looking to, this is more for the budgetary, we're adding a 0.1 assistant principal to replace what Mr. Sanders' salary is out of Fund 80. Mr. Sanders is our current ISA principal, middle school assistant principal, and activities director. That activities director portion, I'm just going to call it 10% of his position, is paid through Fund 80. So we're looking to take that Fund 80 position away from Mr. Sanders from his contract. So we have to plug in that 10% from Fund 10. We still will have an activity director. We're working through what that will look like, but we're looking to supplant the Fund 80 with the Fund 10, and it's approximately a 0.1 FTE. Our sales enrollment, we have a waiting list at sales. We're looking to increase regular education assistant at sales to meet the needs of our kids and the number of kids that we need to service. We work with the sales staff and the board, and right now we're looking at hiring an educational assistant, and we're actually in the process of doing that right now to hire that for the immediate needs that they have. And then we're looking to have, this is budgetarily, a assistant principal at SHS. Currently this year, it's we have a principal and a dean at SHS. We'll be looking to add the assistant principal back into the budget for next year. So the recommended building administration structure. We're looking at no change to south side to keep Ms. Eberson Riley. For Montessori, High Point, and Sales, we're still looking at having Dr. Wendy Burnett. And at Herman, once again, this is the recommended. We're looking at Mr. Oswald being the sole principal and Mr. Dow being the assistant. At Meadowview, we're looking at Mr. Ott being the principal. Assistant principal, Mr. Sanders, which would also have the ISA principal and the dean of student, if approved, and an activities director on some sort of extra duty contract. For Sparta High School, we're recommending the structure of principal, Mr. Ford, assistant principal, if approved, dean of students is currently held by Mr. Sands, and the activities director, Mr. Blaha. So the net staffing, we're looking at 5.5 reduction in certified positions. That's teachers and the instructional coach. Overall 4.0 educational assistants with the regular ed. We're reducing 5, but we're adding sales. We're looking at a 1.0 minus in a principal, adding a 1.1 assistant principal, and a 1.0 dean of students. And the approximate savings I know Ms. Hauser said about 500,000. I just put on here, it's a little over 450,000, between 450 and 500,000. I also want to add the staff, SASD staff did see these recommendations in full on Thursday afternoon as well. So the board is, seeing it for the first time. However, the staff was informed of all this as well ahead of time, and had some good discussions. I met with Meadowview staff because, as you could see, the Meadowview did take, the 3.5 out of the 5.5. So are out of the 4.5 teachers. So I did speak with them in person to talk to them about that. And that's all I have right now. It's open to questions and your considerations. Or before I continue, Leah, Kyla, Lisa, did I forget anything or you want to add? Okay, thank you.
Questions from the board?
Yeah, Mr. Hendricks. So, Ms. Hauser, I have a quick question. From a budgetary standpoint, how much does a dean of students cost from a general standpoint? Approximately.
Yep. Approximately 70,000 in salary and 30,000 in benefits, so 100,000 total.
All right, 100,000. And for our 3 Meadowview teachers, the reductions there, approximately how much would that be?
I budget 50,000 in salary for a teacher, not knowing level of experience, and it would be a 30,000 as a full benefit package, so 80,000.
All right, so approximately 240. Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Mr. Russ, I think it will be helpful for the board before we consider this again, to be able to see what the rearrangement will look like with the reduction of the 3 core teachers at the middle school. Something that we can, really understand. So that we can give that our full consideration.
We can have that. We can start those discussions and bring them back to the full board the best we can.
Okay.
So we've had internal discussions about a 4x2 pod, keeping the same structure, keeping the same bell schedule and everything. So we had discussions internally about a 4x2 pod. So right now we're a 3x3, 3 teachers for 3 pods. We would go to in a 2x4, 2 pods of 4 teachers as an idea.
Okay.
As an idea.
It'll be helpful for us to have a solid idea of what we're
Okay.
voting on in that respect. I would also throw out to the board that while this motion is on paper, it says discussion and possible recommendation to approve. I think it is possible that we could have a motion to forward this staffing decision to the full board without a recommendation. So it doesn't place you in the position of saying, yes, I'm approving something or recommending it for approval, but recommending it for further discussion to the full board.
And if we do that, I really appreciate the direction, any questions that you'd want to have answered before that next meeting would be, just let us know, like what would the instructional model look like, or what are some ideas that we're thinking?
I think John hit on one of my major concerns with this. Seeing a 0.5 or a 1.0 on a spreadsheet and looking at the budgetary dollars is a lot different than seeing it under a rooftop, and what it plays out in real life for our educators. The pod system is one of my major concerns with this. And I kind of reached out to a number of people and talked through the evolution of this building. We started here 20 years ago with some version of a pod system. For some reason, we went away from that. We went to kind of a middle school model up to about 6 years ago when we installed a pod system again that's evolved into the 3x3 that we have today. Inside of that 6 years, we had a pandemic, had virtual learning. We're back to seeing the pod system for about a year and a half. And we're thinking about going away from it. One of the things that I've heard from educators over and over for the last year that I've sat up here is we put new things in place and we don't see them through long enough to know if they're going to work or not. I can't tell you if a 3x3 works or it doesn't work. I can't tell you if a 4x4 is going to work or not. But I know that a year and a half isn't long enough for us to be able to tell. I'm not a scared change. I'm scared of change for change's sake. That probably wouldn't be my first cut. Not saying I want to address it. More importantly, I think for me, it is the understanding of what these positions really do. The spreadsheet that were offered didn't answer those. It really didn't have the impact of what each position was. So much like John said, I want to see what this looks like to our staff. Do we have teachers that when they move position under the same rooftop have to be recertified in something different? Are going to have to teach something that they're really not an expert in? Will these moves lend to retention of the good staff that we have today? Or are we going to go to a hiring and training model? Test scores that I've seen out of this building for the last MAP scores for the last 2 years have been strong. Can't tell you that's 3x3, but something is working. And when I'm looking at a budgetary impact of $240,000 out of 40 million to get it right for this number of kids, it's a hard one for me to say it's the right place to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
And Mr. Hendricks, the other question, so we have an amazing dean of students at the high school. Is there a possibility that the dean would be able to be district wide?
Is it possible? Yep, you could do half middle school, half high school. The question I would have is what kind of relationships can they really establish in a half a day with that? I know our split staff work very hard at doing that because we have a halftime instructional coach at Meadowview and a halftime instructional coach at SHS. Could they? Yep, we'd have to work with administration on that and how that would work. How do you support and that sort of thing. But this is one of the other reasons why we're bringing this forth now, and to have the board can ask these questions, have this discussion open here, rather than waiting until May and people wondering and that sort of thing. So this is the sort of dialogue we want to have and get that information out so we're all on the same page, and we can communicate with our educators and our staff and work together with, hey, what does a 4x2 look like? How is it different than the 3x3? Is this really what we want to do? How does that really change? And we just want to make sure that we're moving the model to move forward. Our enrollment seems to be steady at that. And if we decide that the 3x3 pod model is our instructional model, so be it. And then the board and then the district will move forward with that, knowing that, like we talked about our budget earlier, we need to be able to pull that money to balance our budget from somewhere. The deans look for another reduction in other places. Benefits, we're running out of places to go because we've run out, as we see, our capital improvement budget is not where it's supposed to be. We're pushing off iPads. So our vehicles are, we got our staff members crawling through vehicles just so they can get the stuff. So that's the discussions, and that's the good work of the board, and the hard work of the board is to make those decisions, and we can move forward and adjust accordingly.
And Mr. Hendricks, I'm very happy for us to continue this conversation, but for the sake of staying with the task, I'm going to make a motion to recommend continuing the conversation about staffing decisions for the 23-24 school year to the full board.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Excuse me. Do we need a second before we continue discussion?
It would be,
Or-
it would be appropriate.
Okay. I will second the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. And you have a question?
I do. I just wanted to provide some additional comment, I guess, or direction for the administration regarding this matter. So as I look at this, I see that administration, or Mr. Russ, is asking for a net loss of 9.5 positions to our teachers, our educational assistants, and our instructional coaches, and a net gain of 2.5 to middle management and administration. I have to be honest, in saying that that doesn't necessarily sit well with me, and I'm not sure that that's the direction we want to go. I know last year, about this time when we were talking about staffing issues, there was a lot of discussion about not reducing classroom instruction or teachers, things that would impact our students, but reducing positions at administration and middle management. I appreciate Mr. Schulze's suggestion about maybe making the Dean of Students district-wide. And I believe you had another recommendation too, Mr. Schulze, which I did not write down, but I thought that was smart. But in addition to that, perhaps a district-wide activities director would be a way to go, where we would not have to implement that extra contract that was on one of the slides. Lastly, I am wondering, and I'm also concerned with the pod structure and whether or not reducing that will be beneficial to our students. I don't want our good buildings and grounds employees, crawling around and doing things that are going to hurt them. At the same time, I think that our main focus has to be on our students. So there are a lot of pieces. This is not a difficult discussion for anyone to have, but we really do need to have some better guidelines on how that pod will work before I think I would be willing to consider those reductions.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez.
Thank you.
Ms. Gilbert?
Thank you. Yeah, I think for me, that was where my initial concerns went to of conversations that we had last spring of wanting to prioritize the student support and try to keep or create that structure for in the classroom and the educational assistants. Mr. Russ, can you share more about how specifically the assistant principal and the dean additions would help our educators in the classroom and what that looks like? But you mentioned the half day building relationships concern. I think in our conversations, I also came from some of the behavioral issues that we've seen spikes in over the last couple of years too. Can you share more about what that vision is?
Yeah, so our current structure is high school, for looking at SHS, is a principal and a dean. So there's two, I was just going to say 2 adults that can do discipline. At the middle school currently, there is 3 adults that can do discipline. They have a principal and 2 assistant principals. When talking to our staff, certified staff specifically, they're asking for, and our building administrators are busy right now running around about working with students to increase their behaviors to affect the learning of themselves and others, and to help the teachers be able to focus on, facilitating learning rather than telling Mr. Wells, please stop, please stop, please stop, and those sorts of things. So it's really to work with the recommended structure is to balance the need for our principals to get into the classrooms and give our teachers the instructional leadership that they need. Because right now, I don't want to speak for Mr. Ford, but right now they're handling discipline. They're being reactive. rather than being proactive in working with teachers, making sure that they can increase their craft. And then at the middle school, what this opportunity will allow us to is to still keep those three important adults. And the dean will focus more in on all the student discipline, and they'll have to formalize that structure, but to increase their presence in the classroom is the goal with that. So it's really to help the teachers instructionally and behaviorally, and have those administrators work with the kids to build those positive relationships, to change that behavior through restorative practices, through education, rather than, Todd, you have your detention, move on. So my question would be is if we do reduce and don't give the support of the deans, our administrators would be doing more student discipline issues, student attendance issues, rather than giving the teachers the instructional leadership that they need. And opens up our principals to do more PLC work, instructional leadership, curriculum work, and really dive into the things that the principals need to dive into, rather than not saying that student discipline isn't important, but that's more of an assistant principal and dean role.
I thank you. That's kind of where my head went to of how can we also be proactive? And so I think of those layers of not waiting until they get to middle school or high school. Can we do more around the social emotional learning earlier and help build some of those supports so that earlier interventions there. And then I think that pod concern was also one of that I had too. So it'd be great to see what some of those models would look like if this was what we went with, or maybe a version on either side of the spectrum there too. But I think remembering back to conversations last year, those pods were really part of what justified some of those cuts, because we were able to have educational assistants and more people in the classroom to help with, some of those challenging issues on the daily, right? So I think that's one thought, seeing those pod structures, right? Seeing how that plays out. But then also, can we use some of this projected surplus, some of this to help offset some of these costs temporarily, or kind of stagger? I would like to see maybe suggestions there, if that makes sense to the rest of the board of the 130,000. What could that look like coming back into some of this staffing plan? If it makes sense, maybe the admin recommendation isn't, and then we take that and go. But I think that would make sense to explore as well.
Mr. Hendricks. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. In the 130 is actually the 575 plus the 130. So it's the 700,000, but we're anticipating using that 700,000 right now. If we had to, it goes back to Ms. Hauser's presentation about near, on the bottom of that near, that said using the $700,000 of the revenue stabilization.
Mm-hmm.
So that's encountered, that's accounted for.
Mr. Hendricks. Yeah. So I guess one of the big things that was just tripped my mind while we were going through everything here is, correct me if I'm wrong, but right now our dean of students at the high school is he serving in any way, shape, or form in an assistant principal role at this time? Because we don't have, it's vacant.
No, he's doing the dean of students. Is he doing some instructional things on for professional development and stuff like that? I know Mr. Sands is working very hard, but his primary essential job function is working with student discipline, student attendance on a daily basis. And on the offshoot, during PLCs and stuff like that, I'd be assuming that he's in their groups trying to lead instructionally as well, unless he's got, paperwork and that sort of thing to do.
Because my thought process was, if we do a district-wide dean, we're adding an assistant principal for support to Mr. Ford at the high school level. We still have the dean support on a half-time basis. And I do understand what you're saying about having to split that time, and empathetic to that. But that was just one of the thoughts, was we may be able to save that vacant dean position, and because of the assistant principal going into the high school.
Further discussion.
Does our current SRO work on discipline issues at all?
No, he works, the SRO works on the law enforcement side. So he would work if a student gets into a physical altercation, he may issue a citation. truancies and that sort of thing. But no, he doesn't go around and issue detentions or anything like that. The SRO should only be acting at the discretion of the building administration.
Okay, we have
And before I want to talk to about Miss Lopez with the AD role. One idea that we did have, a lot of districts do it a little bit differently. So the high school AD sometimes is the middle school AD as well. Toma has that model, but not a lot of other people have that model. Other districts have the AD doing facilities as an extra. I don't want, because they're very busy, as illustrated by this weekend when Mr. Blaha was doing everything with show choir. But anyway, so some extra duty. Some of it's an assistant principal, some of it's facilities, some of it's a testing coordinator, and other districts have it as an activities director, 612. When I first started, Mr. Tudo was our 612 activities director. And then when he left, we brought in Mr. Montgomery for a short term. And then when we brought in Mr. Sanders, it was decided that we're going to split, that we're going to have a middle school activities director, which I believe was Mr. Oswald at the time. And Mr. Sanders came in with the high school activities and some assistant principal roles as well. And then when Mr. Stopsling retired, the sales transferred from Mr. Stopsling to the AD role. So the AD before this year had sales as well as their AD. So we would look to have some sort of additional role like he's had, like Mr. Blaha's had in the past, sales in the past, assistant principal this year. So we're still working through what that would look like.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I do think as we may potentially be asking our classroom teachers to absorb more students and more work and more responsibilities, I think that it's reasonable to ask everyone in the district to do that as well.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez, and thank you for this important discussion. So we have a motion by Mr. Scholze, seconded by Ms. Lopez, and correct me if I don't state this right, but the recommendation or the motion is to move this discussion forward to the full board without recommendation.
That is correct.
Any
Yes.
further discussion?
I have anything else that you guys would like to see the board have as information? The instructional model with the possible reductions of a core teacher. We talked about options for the AD.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'd like to know what your thoughts are, or Mr. Blaha's thoughts are on that, on expanding that role. I know he's a very busy person right now, so
Yep.
I might be interested to see if that's
Okay, so we can bring some
available.
ideas about what that would look like. And one other option that some districts do that is quite often is that it's an extra duty contract for the AD role at the middle school. So approximately $10,000. Some say that it's just a, like a head coach, like an 8th grade basketball coach. They would get paid, for every season of that to organize, get everything all set, but it'd be an extra duty contract outside of the school day.
All right, since the motion is just to forward the discussion, I see no need for a roll call vote, so I'll just call for a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on, we have omitted item I, so we will go to item J, discussion and possible action to go into an agreement with the city of Sparta on a traffic study at the intersection of Montgomery and Water Streets. Mr. Russ?
Yes. In the past, you've heard me talk about a traffic study. The Montgomery and Water Street intersection is a traffic light right now, and there's no arrows. In working with the city and the state and the county, since they all seem to have jurisdiction in some form there, because they're city streets, they're county highway, and there's a state highway there, looking to do a traffic study. And we have a collaboration opportunity with the city of Sparta, if we wish. The traffic study would, at that intersection, would take, how traffic flow is doing, really get a gauge about what that traffic is. and then come up with some ideas about how to make that intersection more productive. Do we need to add arrows? Do we need to, whatever it might be? The structure there is sound. It's got some wiring and everything, so it's going to have to do a little bit of work, but not a lot of tear up work, if I understand our meeting with the city and state and county. So the traffic study is the first part of this, because it may come back and say, you know what, you can add arrows, you can add 50,000, but you only get 2 cars in further. So then we'd have to decide if that's really worth it. Or they come back and say, hey, you do $50,000 worth of work and you're going to get 20 cars through here quicker. So what this is the first step, it's kind of like the facility assessment. So really the first step to analyze what that capacity of that intersection is. And it costs about $4,500. And when I talked to Mr. Fawning, he's interested in bringing it to the city board for their recommendation, because it's not built into their budget. It's under $20,000, so we could very easily say, yep, we're going to do this. But I decided to bring it to you guys for your ideas about, do we want to go into collaboration with them? Is this something to say, you know what, it really doesn't interest us? Do we want to do it 50-50? Or do we want to buy it outright, the $4,500? So it'd be my recommendation to go 50-50 with the city. And the earliest that would happen is that they have the same process as we do. They'd go to their board, they go to another one. So at the end of April, it may pass their board. I don't know if it will or not, but they're kind of waiting on us if we want to move forward with it, and what kind of partnership we want to come in. So our options are 0, say, you know what, we still want the city to talk about it, or we can pay for it all and then it'll go right away. Or we can look for a partnership in between there, 50-50, so forth. And it'd be my recommendation to go in 50-50. That would be my recommendation.
And just for clarification, the 50% is the 4,500?
Nope, divided by 2, so 2250. So we're 50-50 would be a $2,250 investment for the district.
And if we would enter into this agreement, does that lead to an assumption that we would have to pay for the 50% of the work that might come out of this?
No, we're just looking to do the traffic study as a first step. And I can make sure that they know that, no, we're looking to do the study at this time, nothing more.
Any other questions?
I have a comment, or I guess it might be a question, Mr. Hendricks. Mr. S., I guess, with all due respect to the city of Sparta, I'm not understanding how entering into this agreement would benefit the school district at this time. If they plan to do a study on that, would they not take into consideration how traffic works around that entire intersection with Meadowview Middle included and, in our other schools around there? Why would the school district need to incur that cost? And what benefit would it be to us to spend that? I mean, it's with a $44 million budget, it's very small investment, but maybe I just missed it, but I'm just not understanding why we even need to go there. If the city takes it on, the traffic would produce itself and they would get a good feeling about what needs to be done to improve that district without our financial input, unless having the financial input also gives us the opportunity to have an input into suggestions as to what could be done. Does that make sense?
So yeah, right now, I think it does. I hope I can try to answer it. Right now, the city has no plans to move forward at this time. This would, with our assistance, this would bring it to the forefront, because we do get a lot of questions about, hey, how can we make that better? A lot of people get hung up. They're waiting for buses. Our buses can't get there. So it is, during the school months, it would benefit us potentially if they could do something with arrows, for example. So it would benefit our parents and our students and our entire community by getting the traffic flow through there more often and more safely as well. So, but right now the city has not, they've talked about it just probably as much as the board and the district has talked about it in the past, ever since Meadowview came about. And at this time, they don't have any immediate plans on the books to have a study and to make any adjustments. So I hope that answered the question. This would kind of move it forward in that partnership.
Yes, that did answer my question. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And Mrs. Lopez, just to further elaborate, this is this district asking the city. So I don't know if that helps. We're reaching out to them. So yeah.
I got that from the remainder of Mr. S's explanation. So thank you so much. I did not understand that at the beginning, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I think it's also important to note that that's probably one of the busiest intersections in the city. I mean, when we think about it, it's pretty much the midpoint between all our schools and the midpoint between the business districts inside the city of Sparta. So it's kind of like the unknown intersection that draws a lot of vehicles to be pushed through there. So I mean, if we could have it easier for students to walk, make it easier because I mean those the left green lights also makes it easier for the walk signals to be put into place. And so a lot of those things, how can we get students to school as safely and efficiently as possible? I think this would be a minor investment on our part.
I think a motion would be appropriate.
I can make that motion to recommend to the full board for consideration agreement in the city of Sparta traffic study at intersection of Montgomery and Water Street.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Burns Gilbert, second by Mr. McKenna. Mr. Russ?
I'm sorry, the motion didn't specifically state the amount financially that we're looking at. We're looking to do it all 50-50.
I would make the motion for 50-50. Yep, sorry.
Is that agreeable? Okay. Any further discussion? If not, I think we can just call for a voice vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Closing items, announcements and information, Mr. Russ.
All right. First thing we need to go about is that Memorial Day is the fourth Monday of the month in May. So I'm guessing the board would probably want to change that. I know Ms. Markman would volunteer for you guys to change that. So I would like to propose if you start looking at the calendars, we could do the 15th and the 22nd. I know it's a quick turnaround, but if the board's agreeable to that, or we could skip the 29th and go to the 5th, but then we're still going back to back in June one way or another. So it'd be my recommendation that we change the 29th to the 22nd. Or we can go on Tuesday. So I'm just throwing it out there. Oh, Ms. Mansky wants to raise her hand.
Just wanted to remind you, we scheduled the 15th for the Human Growth and Development Committee.
I think Tuesday would be a much better. So if it's Tuesday, the 30th?
It's the second and fourth Mondays, right?
Yes.
Isn't the first Monday, May 1st? So the second.
I'm sorry, it's the. Oh, never mind. We're good.
So it'd be May 8th and then.
May 8th and 22nd. So scratch that.
Okay.
I thought I was looking at, there's 5 Mondays. So.
Good. Yeah.
That was easy. Perfect. So we all know how to, I don't know how to read a calendar, so, but that's okay. Anyway, we'll change the subject. Tomorrow we have a board candidate forum, 6 o'clock at Meadowview, but I also want to announce, it's not on here, but ISA also has their outreach program tomorrow as well, inviting all families. Robotics is going to be here. They have the cafeteria area. They got the gym area. A lot of STEM activities here tomorrow at the same time. So very busy place here at Meadowview tomorrow. Policy workshop, 8 a.m. Maplewoods Conference Room. We'll have some soup as well. And then the full board on the 27th. As planned, and I'll be here. We have election day coming up on the 4th, committee of the whole, and then the full board in April. Before I get to the facility update, news and happenings, once again, just a lot of positivity and a lot of energy coming out of our classrooms. We're starting spring sports. Last week we kicked it off. This week we even have more, so we start to ramp up everywhere we go. So please be cautious when you start to, our kids are going to be literally running around the streets. The middle school athletics will be coming, and high school athletics are already running around the streets. We'll get kids going into Memorial Field for practice, using all of our facilities and that sort of thing. So we are in the assessment season. Thank you to all the juniors who worked very hard last week on their ACT. And now we start moving into forward pre-ACT work. And we also have our maps that will be coming in down the road. So again, anything that we can do to encourage our kids and our families to do their best on those assessments, just to get, all we ask is give your best effort. That's all we ask to see what happens. And then we'll use that information and move forward. Facilities update. We did have a nice meeting with our auditorium consultant, our auditorium vendor, with a set of stakeholders. He walked the facility, talked about sound and lights and how many lights do you want, how many microphones and stuff that I'd have no idea how many. But really started talking about what that facility could look like and maybe some options for expanding or just keeping our current envelope. So we're working on some more final information before we move forward. Leah mentioned it, our facilities assessment is going to be coming up later this week as well. We're going to meet with Bray Architects and Market and Johnson to move that process forward. It's going to be a small group to get a plan moving forward, but moving forward in that way very positively as well. And finally, we had I thought an excellent community engagement event on Wednesday of last week. We had 70 community stakeholders come through once. Some of them stayed for the tour, some of them stick around for the tour and the engagement at the end. Others just came for the engagement. It was fantastic. A lot of good positivity. A lot of good ideas, and it's really nice when I thanked everyone for coming, not just interacting with staff, but interacting with their community peers, that they have such a diverse background of a lot of different things and a lot of different opportunities and so many different ideas. It was so nice to see, and thank you for the administration being there. Thank you for the board members, future board members possibly, to being there, all facilitating those ideas and putting names with faces and making those positive connections. So we took a lot of notes. We're still going through that. I shared this with the board in the weekly notes, and there's a word cloud out there. When you dump a bunch of words out there, the priority words come out in larger print, and the secondary words, are less size. So when you put it all together, this is the information that came out, and it's very clear when you see it as need for community kids. Space, facility, that's all coming around, but the word need came out and the community came out. And then when you start talking about kids, it starts to branch off in priorities in different areas and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to share that with the board and thank the board and thank the community for coming out. We're going to continue these sorts of discussions on April 19th. We're going to have a soup with the soup. We'll continue these discussions, continue to get more ideas. We'll have some updates from the facility, where we're at with our facilities. Hopefully we'll have some ideas for the auditorium. But once again, just start sharing those ideas, getting that listening and learning, because we're all about listening and learning so we can gain a better perspective about what our stakeholders are thinking. Our teachers, our students were even there the other day, which was fantastic. Business owners, parents, grandmas, grandpas, uncles, aunts, a neighbor. We want all those ideas there. So thank you very much for everybody coming out, and For those who are there, I'd encourage you to continue and bring a friend. Bring a friend or two to make this, to really get the community engagement going. So thank you very much.
Hey, Mr. Russ, April 19th, soup with the soup. What time?
That will be at, I believe, 6 o'clock or 5:30. I think 5:30.
Thank you.
Yep. I haven't decided what kind of soup yet, but that's a different story. So.
So I'll accept a motion to adjourn at this time.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Schulte. Thank you, Mr. Wells.
Yeah, I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I
Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned.